Okay, hello and welcome to the first video of Diablo 4. Today we will be going over a medium to roughly early game that can probably last to later games. It's a necromancer army class, where first of all we're gonna be starting off showing you where you start off with level 1. Normally when you start off with level 1, you'll start with 1 to 3 skill points at the start. What you want to invest in at first is your bone splinter, and when you're going down the tree, you want to hit all the way over to the acolyte's bone splinters. I can't pronounce it. When you're going down the tree, we're just going to briefly go over what we're going to be going to first, and then I'll be going over explaining why we did those upgrades later in the video. What you want to do next is you want to focus on the bone spear, which would be your second most used weapon besides your bone splinters. And what you want to do is go to make them vulnerable for the fact that you'll be dealing a lot more damage when you're utilizing your army. The next thing you want to invest in would be corpse explosion going up to the miasma. This will cause your enemies, while they're all grouped together by using your golem, to receive constant amount of damage from a massive amount of input, which doesn't really utilize your mana too much. You want to usually make sure all of this is your two main stuff maxed out so that you're utilizing. Keep your corpse explosion around 4 because armors later on will utilize your corpse explosion. Going down, you want to skip really most of these, the active abilities. You won't be using these. You want to use Death Embrace, and you want to use your Skeleton Mage Mastery. This would be for later on when you level up and you gain more of your Book of the Dead. But for now, you want to just utilize whatever you can along the tree, progressing it. The good thing about this build is that it is very versatile. You can change things up. You can do different upgrades with your armor. And it is very workable around your class and how you want to progress to the game. What you want to do is one skill that you'll definitely need is the Army of the Dead, and you want to max it out. The Army of the Dead will be necessary for when going into boss fights, mostly when you're soloing. Even when you're with a group, the Army of the Dead will provide the necessary amount of bodies, damage output, and it will, once you fully upgrade it, it'll also replenish all of your corpses and your skeletons. Another important thing to keep in mind is these 4 skills in the last bracket. This will be later on once you unlock it. You really want these 4 to be focused on because of abilities. As you can currently see, I'm level 40. I haven't maxed out this, which is why you can really just go anywhere with it. What you want to do though is you want to have your skeletons pretty good built. What I'd recommend is you go Golem Mastery because you'll mainly be using your golems. You want your skeletons to be good and utilize your health and attack speed on them, because we will be using the golems and you'll be mainly staying back. You have really rounded out hand. Sorry, I have to select that. When selecting all of your skills, you do want to make sure that you do select the skeleton golem. The skeleton golem will allow you to grab aggro of every enemy within its vicinity with a 15-second cooldown. When doing the skeleton golem, you do want to make it activate the second option, which allows you to do thorns. When going off of the other skeletons, for example the mages and the warriors, I would recommend doing the defenders with more thorns. The more they get attacked, the more they deal damage to the enemies, and they're basically human shields at that point, which will grab the aggro of all the monsters around you. skeleton mages, which I would recommend, would primarily be your cold mage, and I would recommend using the frozen, the second option, because your skeleton mages will make them vulnerable every time, and I can guarantee your enemies will get frozen 90% of the time. You don't even realize it, you just kill them by the time you notice. The whole point of this build is for you to be a whole rounder, and you need to utilize your skeleton army in a fight. You want to use all the abilities you can to try and keep all the attention off of you while you're dealing the majority of damage. The armor that I currently have on is pertaining to this build that I'm using, and most of this you can't get out of dungeons. You would have to get basically lucky and get it off of legendary drops that you get throughout the game. And most of this you would get pretty early on in your level 20s, possibly 30s. You can take on up to 10 levels higher than you. With medium difficulty, it doesn't take too hard. I've taken on level 50s and 40s while I was still in my 25s and 30 levels. So it will help with level grinding, and it does help you if you do not have a party to play with. I'm now going to go through all of the enchantments that I have on that I prefer and I recommend you using. I recommend using the ability where your mages will cause a blizzard to continually deal 576 damage over a period of 6 seconds. It will upgrade later on depending on level and your progression through the game. The next one I recommend is the damaging an elite creature, which gives you a barrier. This will help because when you're going up against elite creatures and you're in the back dealing damage, when your skeleton golem's ability wears out and all the enemies are coming at you, especially in a boss fight where your skeleton golem doesn't affect the boss's aggro, you definitely need to be having health to be able to deal with it. The barrier will prevent any damage caused, and you will basically just be able to stand still, deal damage, and wait until your cooldown is up, but I'm not recommending tanking the damage. The next one I recommend would be having a barrier active. There's a 9% chance to ignore incoming direct damage from distant enemies. There is a large chance, since you're farther away, there will be a lot of mages shooting their abilities at you once the aggro is released, or if all the aggro is not grabbed. You need the damage reduction because this is not a build where you can receive a lot of damage. You gain a lot of health from killing your enemies, and you deal a lot of damage, but you're really relying on your skeletons to be able to tank and be an all-rounding hand. You basically have all 4 attributes in your party playing solo, so you don't have to rely on other players. What I recommend is, if you can get lucky, it is very hard from what I have found to get your skeleton mages increased. If you can get any increase in your skeleton or your army, put that on your armor. Like I said at the start of the video, you can get really rounded out with this build. It is not pertaining to one thing. You can edit it just fit how it fits you. You do not have. I found that I prefer building my own builds. This is the build that works for me, and it's gotten me so far while playing on solo. Every time you're close to an enemy, which most enemies will be charging at you, per second you're healing life. That's what you want. You want your heals to be going through constantly. You don't want to die, because once you're running solo, there's no way to get around. Your Army of the Dead is a special ability that you have, and it's your ultimate ability that has a 90-second cooldown. You utilize this in many situations. You can deal a lot of damage when you need in a party, or when you're solo, you can use it to get back your army, and you can use them as shields to keep yourself alive. This ability is necessary for the build for the fact of it gives you 98, it depends, but for now I have 88 for my attack speed and 90% reduced damage. I have seen other abilities for higher levels where they have 180% reduced damage, which keeps your skeletons alive longer, meaning more damage output, meaning you stay alive. Another one you want to do is critical strikes with bone skills. Since your main essentials are your bone splinters and your bone spear, you do want to increase with your bone spears. There is another one. Oh, I got rid of it. Oh, that's bad. I will now be showing you what this deck is meant for and how to utilize it, since most people would try and do. What you want to focus on while battling in this hand is utilizing your Golem's ability. You really want him to be grabbing the aggro of all the enemies around you, and also, since I have no skeletons, but with a fully maxed out Army of the Dead, I can bring in my skeletons while dealing a massive amount of damage. The good thing about utilizing a golem is once they're all together, you can now drag them all, and you can then stay back, and then you can utilize your corpse explosion. This would constantly allow you to deal damage to not only one, but multiple over a period of 6 seconds or more, meaning you have a lot more AOD and a lot more potential to get corpses and your skeleton revive when your attack is getting dealt with. You want to utilize your golem a lot more than people put on. You want to have him in the fray. He is an unlimited soldier. Every time he dies, you have 20 seconds to get back. And since you're far away, you can constantly deal the damage needed, and your skeletons, mainly your skeleton mages, will be supporting you in the rear along with your other skeletons in the front. As you can see, I'm utilizing my skeleton golem every chance I get. I'm then utilizing corpse explosion to try and deal with the AoE of all of them being surrounded by my corpse. What I recommend is for your weapons, you do want to have lifesteal, so every time you kill an enemy, you gain life. With you having corpse explosion, you are able to steal and gain life for every kill. There are a few other skills I recommend for your armor, mainly because, like blood orbs, every time you interact with a corpse, you gain blood orbs. That includes your corpse explosion, which gives you more life later on. As you can see, the one I currently have doesn't have lifesteal on it. I do have other gear that does give me a lifesteal, but it helps way later down the road or even early on when you are dealing a massive amount of damage and you're killing swarms of enemies all at once. This build can be used early on through your mid games into your late games. You can go solo, you can do multiple other teams with you. You can utilize it in many ways. You can branch off of it, build your own build off of it. It is such a variety deck that you can do practically any with it. That's what I enjoy about Diablo. Diablo gives you endless chances to change your own playstyle, do your own thing, and it just allows you. Once you do get down to the bottom level though, I do prefer doing the Kalan's Edict. This will help your minions later on. Most of these skills pertain to your minions rather than your own personal character. Your personal character is built at the start, early levels, rather than the laters. You want to have your skeleton army up to par so that you can deal the most amount of damage while not having to worry about tanking anything or having someone else trying to pull aggro for you. That would be pretty much all for the build of a necromancer army on Diablo 4. If you have any questions, leave comments. Hopefully this helps you build your own build. Leave a like, subscribe, and hope to see more videos in the future.